Pop culture pastor.
Cody, I'm just going to tell you, there's a lot of pressure on me to lead off these podcasts with some witty thing. And sometimes I just don't have it. I don't got it.
Well, you're not Ricky.
Who?
Ricky Henderson.
Wow.
All-time lead-off guy.
Yeah, I know who Ricky Henderson is, man. Half our viewership does not. Our listenership.
You're welcome.
You're a millennial. Why are you busting out Ricky Henderson?
Because Ricky played while I was alive.
Barely. And he was like 50.
He was still doing his thing.
He was stealing a lot of bases. And he was saying things like, Ricky steals bases. He talked in the third person, like exclusively. It was one of the coolest things ever.
Rest in peace, Ricky.
Is he dead?
I'm pretty sure he died last year.
No. Why do people keep dying and I don't know about it? That's terrible. Ricky Henderson was one of my favorite baseball players. And yeah, he died last year. You're right. I mean, okay, he was pretty old. Doggone it. That's a bummer. All right. We're not starting off the show on a great foot here, Cody.
You're welcome. Sabotage.
The all-time greatest base stealer in the history of baseball. I just found out he passed away last year, and I didn't even know.
It happens.
How come he never played for the Royals? Seems like he played for half the major leagues, and we never got him.
He was too good.
This is a terrible conversation to have for this podcast. Nobody cares.
You're welcome.
But rest in peace to my man, Ricky. Hello, this is Pop Culture Pastor, the podcast. My name is Dave. Cody's here.
I am.
We are geeks and we are pastors. We're in ministry. Isn't that weird?
Very weird.
We're not Dutch, however. That's an Austin Powers joke.
It is.
Okay, so we've got some news things to talk about here. Warner Brothers, things are pretty interesting over at Warner Brothers. There's all sorts of reports out there. We talked about a little bit briefly this week, but I thought we would get into it here on the pod because, first of all, we're both looking forward to Superman, James Gunn's Superman.
We are.
And Cody's really looking forward to it because Cody's a DC guy, and this is the first movie in their ongoing universe. In the Gunverse. And it might be the last one, according to this report from Puck. I don't know what Puck is. Apparently it's some sort of media outlet.
Allegedly.
David Zasloff, who is he the CEO? Yeah, he's the CEO.
Yes.
The co-chiefs of Warner Brothers. There's too many titles. I don't know who's actually in charge, but I guess it's CEO.
Yes.
And then there's these co-chiefs of Warner Brothers Pictures, Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi. And it's not going well. They've had a lot of stinkers.
Well, when you shelve the Acme movie, you're bound to lose money.
Well, that was Zaslav's call, though.
I know. Darn you, David.
Oh, okay. So you're blaming Zaslav. Well,
I will.
He is reportedly thinking about replacing the chiefs of Warner Brothers Pictures. And a report came out earlier this week that one of the top contenders is DC Studios co-CEO Peter Safran.
Pete's good. I do like Pete.
Now, this to me would be like, well, why is that news? Because of the other part of the report that says there are sources inside the studio that says that Superman has to be a hit. It has, quote, almost incalculable importance to Warner Brothers because the report explains that there's a, quote, genuine fear Warner Brothers could go the way of 20th Century Fox, which is no longer around, basically. That if this movie fails, that Warner Brothers could go, like, you could lose it all. Forget your movie universe. If this doesn't hit, now, okay, so here it is. According to a studio veteran, so someone wanted to be anonymous. Quote, an essential element of the stock price is believing that the IP of DC is meaningful. David bet big that they can show the world that the DC IP can have real value. Superman is the first movie. That will set the tone. There's a tremendous amount riding on it. Now, Cody, there are also reports out there that said the test screenings haven't gone well. Those are unsubstantiated. No one really knows but Warner Brothers, the people in that room.
Yeah.
So where are you at here? Where are we at?
Oof.
Yeah.
Out of the DC Trinity, to stake everything on, Superman would have been my second choice.
Yeah, Batman's more can't miss as far as the movie world goes.
Even the bad ones make bank. Looking at you, George. Looking at you.
Yeah, what's interesting about that is in 1988 would have been the opposite. Superman would have been your can't miss, and in Batman, you're like, you want to do a what movie?
Yes. But if you knock Superman out of the park, then you definitely have 2/3 of the Trinity looking very solid. And depending on who you cast for Wonder Woman, you just might have a perfect storm to revitalize Warner Brothers and DC.
Yeah. So I also heard some other stuff that if Zaslav becomes the guy, then all of a sudden, so there's these rumors that or not Zaslav, but Saffron. If Saffron becomes the guy, there's all these rumors that Saffron and Gunn haven't even read Matt Reeves' Batman 2 script because they don't want it to happen. Because they want to do their own Batman and they don't want the competing version. That's rumor, allegedly. But that this whole thing that's taking place behind the scenes, there are some people who are conjecturing that say if it is Saffron, then we may never see the Batman 2. That may never happen.
Ugh. I did see news, though. Well, alleged news. That our guy from the new Captain America movie that they replaced Seth Rollins for.
Oh, Giancarlo Esposito.
Is rumored to be in Batman 2 as the villain.
Oh, as allegedly possibly Mr. Freeze, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Which, that would be... Everything I've heard about what Matt Reeves was going to do sounds kind of fun. Sounds kind of awesome.
I'm here for Mr. Freeze. And bring back that ride, Six Flags.
Sometimes I'm just like, it doesn't seem... Warner Brothers just can't seem to get out of their own way. But here's the good news if you like, what's his name as Batman? Pattinson, if you will.
Yes.
If you like him as Batman, the rumor is that Saffron and Gunn want him as their Batman. But Matt Reeves doesn't want that Batman to be in their universe.
I don't blame him.
Yeah. So there's all this weird kind of behind the scenes. Maybe stuff's going on. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's all just hype. Who knows?
So when James Gunn announced that there would be Elseworlds projects that wouldn't be connected to the universe but would fall under the DC banner, Matt Reeves having his own standalone movies is the ideal way to show everyone, hey, we can do this and not take away from our own cinematic universe, but we're going to get more Batman. And I think that would be a brilliant strategy.
And just to be clear, and I think I've asked you this before, you don't think that's counterproductive?
No.
Okay.
Because
that seems weird to me. It feels like they're competing then.
No.
No.
Because, for years I've been saying the problem with cinematic universes is you can't tell standalone stories. They all have to somehow connect in. Mm-hmm. And I like the idea of having a Batman that doesn't have to fit in with what we're doing with, but then also having a Batman that does. And James Gunn talked about that the direction he was wanting Batman to go, it honestly sounded older than our Pat.
Yeah, because Damian Wayne would have been Robin in The Brave and the Bold. That's what they were talking about.
And so a slightly older Batman, maybe not in his 50s, but 40, 45-ish. Someone that's been around, where this is
like
year...
Me.
Yes, like you.
Pretty much looks just like me.
Where Robert's supposed to be like year 2 Batman.
Yeah, it doesn't quite work with where Matt Reeves was taking the character, where they want to go. I don't know. I have hope for Superman. I think the key to Superman is this. Like, I don't care if you have a different take, whatever. The one thing that has to be true is you have to nail the feel of that character. Just like Batman has a feel to him, Superman has a feel too. And if you're not true to the feel of that, that's going to be a problem. And I think like some of the rumblings I've heard, and granted, this could all just be Snyder bros online who are just mad, who are making up stuff.
Quite possibly.
So you just never know. But it seems to be the complaint is that they, in the test screenings, if that's real, they're not hitting that feel, which whatever. We're going to give it I'm going to go see it. We're going to review it because I love the character of Superman. But please, James Gunn, please get this right. I have a hard time believing he wouldn't.
I watched Brightburn, which is supposed to be like evil super kid. It felt like a Superman movie until about 2/3 of the way into it, and he's not controlling his impulses and turns the dark side of the force.
Is Brightburn a sequel to Matilda?
Shockingly, no.
You get a little preview of our Be Kind Rewind later on in the show. Yeah, so I actually think they're doing it different than Marvel did, right? Because Marvel started off with the individual movies of the heavy hitters, the Avengers. You get Iron Man, you get Thor, you get Captain America, the Hulk. These are the big guns, whereas DC is not going to give you Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman right out the gate. They're going to give you Superman, but then they're going to give you Supergirl, which I'm kind of down with that.
It looks good.
Yeah, I like Millie Alcock. I think she looks great for that part. I liked her in House of the Dragon, and I think it's very interesting. She's very small.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very interesting route to go, and I actually like the character of Supergirl. So, and then you got the Lanterns Project,
which looks interesting.
Yeah, with Coach from Friday Night Lights. That I like that dude. So I'm actually kind of like the idea of, think about if Marvel would have sprinkled in some of the characters they tried to pawn off in one whole phase.
Yes.
In phase 4. Think about if they sprinkled them in earlier instead of just giving us the heavy hitters and then like being like, oh, here's Miss Marvel.
She-Hulk.
Yeah, and She-Hulk. And everyone's like, you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me? So yeah, I actually like kind of their plan, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Cody, I also wanted to talk about, I know that you were a big fan of Dawson's Creek.
You might have me confused with someone else.
James Van Der Beek, who played our guy Dawson.
Who had a creek.
Was that the point of that show?
I don't know.
There was teenage angst. I know that. And then there was the theme song. I don't want to wait for our love to be over.
Yes.
You remember that song?
I do. That's like all I remember about Dawson's Creek.
Dawson and Pacey, and then whatever the girl's name was. Tom Cruise's ex-wife.
Katie Holmes.
Katie Holmes, but that wasn't her character's name. That's her actual name.
Katie Holmes.
Yeah. So anyways, James Van Der Beek, nobody had really heard from him in a while. Maybe we felt like he just rode off into the sunset with all his early age acting money. Turned out he had stage 3 colorectal cancer. He got diagnosed with it in 2024 at the age of 47. And he put out is it Reels? Is that what's on Instagram?
Yes.
He put out a reel, and I wanted to talk about this because I thought it was just really deep. In fact, you shared it with me, and then it was the first thing I looked at when I woke up that morning, and I posted it immediately to social media, and I was like, well, I did not think I was going to start my day with the dude from Dawson's Creek sharing a word, but here we are. And yeah, so
I watched that during a wrestling pay-per-view.
I'm sure that meshed well.
It did.
Anyways, he said this. the label for the video was What Cancer Taught Me. And he said, I could define myself as a loving, capable, strong, supportive husband, father, provider, steward of the land that we're so lucky to live on. And for a long time, that felt like a really good definition of the question, who am I and what am I? So he's talking about identity. He continues, and then this year I had to look my own mortality in the eye. I had come nose to nose with death, and all of those definitions that I cared so deeply about were stripped from me. I was away for treatment, so I could no longer be a husband who was helpful to my wife. I could no longer be a father who could pick up his kids and put them to bed and be there for them. I could not be a provider because I wasn't working. I couldn't even be a steward of the land because at times I was too weak to prune the trees. And he said, if I'm just a too skinny, weak guy alone in an apartment with cancer, what am I? And I meditated, and the answer came through. I am worthy of God's love simply because I exist. And if I'm worthy of God's love, shouldn't I also be worthy of my own? And the same is true for you. And then he went on and said, if the word God trips you up, I certainly don't know or claim to know what God is or explain God. My efforts to connect to God are an ongoing process that is a constant unfolding mystery to me. But if that's a trigger, if it feels too religious, you can take the word God out and your mantra can simply be, I am worthy of love, because you are. And I don't think I've ever heard that put so well. That we don't need to start an argument about where we came from, but you're worthy of love. That's the important part here. And I just thought that was amazing that this guy went through something, had this kind of deep experience going through it, and then shared that with people for no other reason because he thought it was good information to share. It's encouraging. Man, I feel like we've kind of lost that in humanity. There's very few people out there who are just trying to encourage people.
Yes. And I really do feel that that's a message that you don't get often unless you're talking to either genuinely empathetic people or talking to counselors, therapists, pastors, whoever, that you are worthy of love. Every once in a while you'll get it within film, you'll get it within music, but it's not a predominant thing anymore. Not that the messages that are being portrayed out in the community or out in the culture are necessarily bad or evil. It's just not always uplifting and not always beneficial in mass consumption.
Yeah. I guess what I would end this with is just to say to people, I don't know where you're at. You're listening to this podcast right now, and we appreciate that. And we're glad you're here. I don't know what other podcasts are like, but we sincerely do this because we like people.
We do.
And that's why we go to Comic-Cons. We want this to be a community because it seems like community is something we're falling away from in our culture. People are so upset, and it's like there's no more communities. There's political lines, right? Battle lines would be a better way to put it. But we kind of want to work outside that and just say, hey, we want everyone to be here because we just like people and because you're worthy of being loved.
Save the battle for BattleBots or Smash Brothers.
Yeah, that's good, Cody. Good. but honestly, I think the reason you don't hear this message a lot is because a lot of people don't get the chance that James Vanderbeek is getting.
Oh yeah.
The people who get close enough to death to have this realization don't come out the other side of it. They lose that battle. And I'm sure James would echo that. He'd probably say, yeah, that's true. What are you doing?
Nothing.
You're fidgeting with your water bottle.
It happens.
I can hear it, bro.
I don't think so.
All right. So we tried to be deep and Cody ruined it.
You're welcome.
Do we need to talk about James Bond?
Jimmy Bond?
Yeah. So apparently Amazon just had enough of the Broccoli's and offered them a ridiculous amount of money.
Chopping broccoli.
Chopping broccoli. Nobody gets that either. That's old Saturday Night Live.
And it might be my favorite Dana Carvey thing, even though he has a lot of things.
How dare you? The church lady, always and forever. But yeah, so Amazon has taken control of the Bond franchise. There is all this conjecture on where they're going to go. Apparently, there was some report that came out that said they wanted to do, before they bought it, this has been like last year, they were trying to push for a Moneypenny spinoff.
Please don't. Don't do it.
This might be the only time Cody and I agree. That sounds ridiculous. Nobody wants a Moneypenny spinoff.
Our dear friends at Warner Brothers, they did a Alfred spinoff with young Alfred.
Yeah, as in Batman's butler.
Yes. And it actually was kind of a cool premise and kind of
sucked.
No,
I didn't watch it.
No, it actually was kind of good.
I'm just messing with
It
you.
just is a weird premise that, like, I don't need this. Just give me Batman.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. That's the problem with a lot of this stuff, though. That's like the Marvel Phase 4 problem, right?
Like, yes, you have these characters, and there probably is a way to do it just right, but maybe a solo movie's not it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so now everyone's kind of, well, first of all, there was a leaked memo that said that they were considering replacing Bond with a female, which, if you're making her a 007, you're just giving her Bond's old call number. Fine. If you're making her literally a female version of James Bond, like Jamesina, well, then she better be like, she better have the same sentimentalities.
She's going to be chauvinistic.
That is such a weird thing. I just don't understand that. Make her a different character altogether and do some stories with her. Anyways, they decided not to go that direction. Thank goodness. Pierce Brosnan came out this week and said, I'm hoping that they do the right thing and make sure that it's a British actor, which, yeah, duh.
Oh, yeah. If there's something that I can say for the Broccoli's, it is that they protected that IP so well that it has withstood 50 or 60 years of movies and several different iterations. And there's definitely preferred Bonds and Bonds that people were like, oh, they're the worst. But people still loved the IP and still watched it. And like they were very selective on who they chose.
Yeah.
And I am a little concerned with my friend Jeffrey.
Oh, Bezos.
Yes.
Yeah. So, this report also mentioned that, I didn't know this, but you know, in the 60s, they considered some Americans to play Bond instead of Sean Connery. Were you aware of this?
Why would they do that? Have you heard Sean Connery's voice?
I know. Like, now it seems ridiculous, but I haven't even told you the names yet.
Okay.
You're going to be like, no, they didn't. This is real. Adam West?
Yeah! Batman! Dun-dun-dun-dun.
I'll take a martini, Robin. Shaken, not stirred. And Dick Van Dyke!
What? Although he can do a really good British accent. I will give him that. I've seen Mary Poppins.
He did a Cockney accent. I don't know if that's the one you're going for with Bond.
Probably not, but...
I'm James Bond, you say? Oh, man. Yeah. Who do you think should be Bond? Do you have any ideas? They should probably go young, right?
Yeah.
If they go young, then then it's probably an unknown or someone lesser known guy. I feel like they should go young, and I feel like they should reimagine the character for today's vibe, which will change the character somewhat. But he should still be a guy that maybe you're not super fond of.
Malfoy from Harry Potter.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So you wouldn't say Henry Cavill, because a lot of people are saying Henry Cavill, but he seems too old.
I don't know how he could go undercover. Dude's buff.
He's very buff, very buff. All right, that's enough of that. We've talked about enough news. It's time to move to our next phase. When we come back, it's a Be Kind Rewind.
Yes.
On Millennial Darling.
It is a millennial darling.
Matilda.
This is Pop Culture Pastor.
All right, here we go. It's a Be Kind Rewind. I sent to Cody, so I send this message to Cody, and I'm like, Cody, should we do a Be Kind Rewind this week on Affleck's Daredevil? Because Daredevil Born Again just started, and people are watching it and talking about it. And he sends back this message that was borderline rude.
It was.
He's like, I'm not watching any of this trash until we do Matilda. And I'm like, sheesh, okay, fine.
So honestly, in my head, I remember most people being like, this wasn't good. Ben Affleck's Daredevil.
Oh, Daredevil.
Yes.
I was like, are we talking about Matilda?
No.
Because they have a point.
No. We're talking about Daredevil. And at times, people compared it to Gigli.
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to didn't want us to Be Kind Rewind it because I thought it was good.
Well, then I wasn't going to be kind, and it felt rude.
Well, Be Kind is only in reference to the rewind. Never mind. Okay, so that's how we got here. I was like, okay, well, Cody's really upset. So I guess we're going to let him choose the movie this week.
It happened. This is such a good one.
And he's so happy. He's really giddy. He's really excited. I am not going to just tear this movie down because I know how much Cody loves it. But I am going to point out the weird thing. Like as a Gen X person, I watched this movie. It's like a fever dream, man. I'm just like, I will fully preface everything I say with I'm not trying to be mean. I just don't get it. I don't understand.
So for me, it has the same vibes as Willy Wonka or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, whatever, because it's from the same author.
Yeah, Roald Dahl, once you understand that it's his original work, it makes sense.
It makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And, this was such a fun movie.
I just don't think I was prepared for the unadulterated, well, they didn't filter it. Usually you get Dahl, and it's filtered through our current times and context. And it was like on this one, they were like, Danny DeVito just decided, nah, we're just going to give him the real story. And Dahl was a nutcase, man. So Danny DeVito fought really hard to make this movie.
Yes.
I read a couple of his interviews today as I was getting ready for this movie, and he knocked on a lot of doors and made a lot of calls because his daughters really loved this book, this story that Roald Dahl wrote.
I evidently should have read the book.
Really? So I've actually heard and read that this is a lot of people's favorite Roald Dahl book.
Nice.
Yeah. Not Wonka, not, what's the other ones? There's some other ones.
There's a lot of other ones.
Okay. Well, let's not go through them.
Yeah.
Let's not embarrass ourselves when we can't name any other ones. We read people. Anyways, DeVito gets Mara Wilson to be the girl who's coming off of Mrs. Doubtfire, which you have to understand. Mrs. Doubtfire was a huge movie.
It was.
In the culture. I don't know that it made a ton of money, but in the consciousness. And she was this adorable little girl in that movie who kind of stole the movie. And that was a movie with Robin Williams.
Hard to steal any scenes with Robin in them.
Yeah. So them getting Mara Wilson, Danny DeVito casts himself as Harry, her dad, Matilda's dad, and his real life wife, Rhea Perlman.
Yes.
Which, by the way, that would, before we even get started, something good is their chemistry is super awesome. They play off each other so well, even when they're being people you really don't like. Who they definitely fall into that category in this movie.
And then there's Mbeth
Davids, who plays Miss Honey.
She was in Schindler's List, Army of Darkness, 13 Ghosts, Bicentennial Man.
Pam Ferris plays Miss Trunchbull, and I'm looking at a picture of a lady here that I just don't even believe is the same lady.
It is.
It's crazy how scary they made her look in this movie. So yeah, I mean, it was good. Here's 92% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Hey, I have taste.
And here's the blurb. The film adaptation of a Roald Dahl work tells the story of Matilda Wormwood, played by Mara Wilson, a gifted girl forced to put up with a crude, distant father, played by Danny DeVito, and mother, played by Rhea Perlman. Worse, Agatha Trunchbull, played by Pam Ferris. The evil principal at Matilda's school is a terrifyingly strict bully. However, when Matilda realizes she has the power of telekinesis, she begins to defend her friends from Trunchbull's wrath and fight back against her unkind parents. Released July 28th, 1996. As I said, directed by Danny DeVito. Music by David Newman. And apparently, the music's a big deal in this because they toured the orchestral score. So they did like the thing where they show the movie live and they have the orchestra playing the actual music that goes that goes with the movie. And Danny DeVito narrated it just like live.
Did they have Rusted Root come out live?
They did not have Rusted Root, but we'll get there. That's in my what's good. I'm not going to waste it now. So box office, it only made $47 million. And Danny DeVito had all the thoughts. He was like, well, the studio execs didn't like this movie. They wanted me to tone it down. They took it out of theaters in its second week to make way for some other children's movie they had because it was more mainstream. He had all the excuses.
I'm Team Danny DeVito.
Okay. Duly noted.
Because I do feel this is a cult, family-friendly classic.
Yeah. Yeah. But for millennials, it's very interesting to me how beloved this movie is. I asked someone, so tonight I was at Wednesday night church before I came to record, and there was someone around your age, a lady around your age.
Nice.
And I knew she was a millennial. I'm like, let me ask you a question. What's your feeling on the movie Matilda? And she was like, loved it. Loved it. And I'm like, really? You really loved it? Can you tell me why? I just love it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
You just know.
Yeah. It's wild that so many millennials, this is like almost their Goonies.
Very much so.
But it's very interesting to me because whereas when I was watching this movie, I really got a window into the millennial soul and a window into my own, the Gen X soul, because Gen X movies, the movies we really liked with kids, our childhood favorites were the ones where it was like lifelong friends. Like it was the friend groups and it was all about, we want time to stop. We don't ever want to grow old. I want to stay with this group forever.
You just want to be a Toys R Us kid.
Yeah, right? That was what created the good feelings in us. Millennials, it was like, I want to kill my parents. Like Home Alone. Like, or okay, adults. Like this movie, I was stunned at how much this movie has in common with movies like Carrie, Firestarter, which were Gen X movies. We just didn't love them. But the serious version of this movie is Carrie by Stephen King. It's like literally the same story. It's the girl with the telekinesis and she kills everyone in her high school who's mean to her. It's crazy. Anyways, so all of that was super, super duper interesting to me as I was watching this. And so I'm playing around here a little bit, but I was fascinated with the movie. I was fascinated watching it. And yeah. Do you have anything you want to say broadly about the movie?
It's great.
I know.
And very magical. And at the end, there is a very deep theme that it hits.
Oh, okay. Well, there's definitely some deep themes.
I will point out, since we did a disservice to Mr. Dahl, not naming his books.
Oh, okay.
The BFG.
Oh, yeah? Mm-hmm.
James and the Giant Peach.
Okay. Always forget about that.
Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of others, but those are the big ones.
Yeah. Crazy dude, that Roald.
Oh, yeah.
But they've pretty much used all his work. Those are all movies. They've made movies out of all those.
Yep.
It's wild. It's wild. When did he write books? What was his lifespan? Do we know?
We do know. So he was born in 1916, died in 1990. And
Oh, wow.
Matilda actually isn't released till 1988, if that is correct on the Google machine. But Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 64, BFG, 1982, James and the Giant Peach, 61, The Witches, 1983, Fantastic Mr. Fox, 1970. So he was prolific in his children's writing.
Yeah. So he kind of grows up during the Depression.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That explains it.
And he's also British.
Oh.
So he grew up during the Great Wars.
Yeah. He grew up during the old maid times.
Yes.
Yeah, where there were not enough men to marry. So you had a lot of women on their own in England. That's real. That's where the term old maid comes from. Kind of sad.
Not just a card game.
Okay, let's do we want to Muppetize the movie?
Okay, so I guess I will start off with, I think Miss Trunchbull has to be Miss Piggy.
Okay. I thought you were going to keep Miss Trunchbull. I was
No,
like, all right.
I'm keeping Matilda.
Obviously. Yeah, I agree with that. That's the only way you can go.
Then I think I will go Gonzo as Danny DeVito or Mr. Wormwood.
Perfect.
The lady rocker.
Yeah, with the lips.
The lips, yeah. She will be Rhea Perlman. And then I want Fozzie Bear to be Bruce.
Who's Bruce?
The kid that eats the cake.
Oh, yeah.
Brucey.
Brucey, right. You didn't think at all about keeping Miss Trunchbull as the human and her slinging around Muppets?
No, I honestly thought Miss Honey before that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. If I would have gone different, I would have kept Matilda as the human because she's adorable. The little girl's adorable in this movie.
Yes.
But if I was going to go a different direction, it would have been to keep Miss Trunchbull and just have her, cause havoc among the Muppets. You could throw them a lot farther than a kid.
You could.
All right, Cody, do you want me to go first with what holds up since this is more your thing?
What holds up or what is good? Sure.
Yeah. What holds up? Rusted Root.
Yeah.
Rusted Root makes an appearance. They bookend this movie with their only famous song.
Yes.
Send Me On My Way.
I was singing it the whole movie.
You can't not sing that movie. Send me on my way. Send me on my way. Send me on my way. That's a great song.
It is. There's a lot of nonsense in it, but I'm okay with nonsense.
What kind of nonsense? I'm going to say it to y'all.
Exactly.
What did he say? It's gibberish. That's not a real word.
Yeah, nonsensical. The lyrics, but by George, it works.
As I kind of already mentioned, Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman are great together. The times they have done stuff together, you can just see, like, they're married. They've been married for a long, long time, and you can just see the talent they have and just how well they work together. And in this movie, as really despicable parents, they're still somehow a little likable.
A little bit.
They're the worst. And yet by the end of the movie, I'm just like, now don't give up your child. Come on, you can be good parents. I know you can do it. You got it in you.
Nope.
They did not. But they drank Bud Light with straws, which I laughed so hard at that part. Paul Rubens is in this movie.
I was going to say Pee-wee's in it.
Paul Rubens, I noticed, like, I literally stood up and cheered when I saw he was in this movie because I was here at any time Paul Rubens got a chance to be someone other than Pee Wee Herman, because I think everyone just remembers him as Pee Wee Herman. And then once you remember someone who played a character for so long, you tend to not give them the credit they deserve.
Looking at you, Rachel from Friends.
Yeah, for the talent level they have. And even in this movie where he's playing like kind of straight up FBI guy
or speedboat salesman.
Yeah, and he was funny, like doing deadpan lines. It was hilarious. And I just thought, man, Paul Reubens, we didn't deserve Paul Reubens.
We did not.
I have Crunchum Hall on my notes. The name of the school is Crunchum Hall. If you say it fast, you'll get it. Crunchum Hall. Where they are destroying little children.
Left and right.
I think the Roald Dahlness of it all does hold up. Like, it's even though I feel like you maybe wouldn't be able to make this movie today in the same way. The weirdness, once I found out it was a Roald Dahl story, I was like, oh, this makes tons of sense.
Too much sense, honestly.
But I'll let you go with the rest, and then I'll kind of comment on those if I have comments.
So the casting of this movie is phenomenal.
Right?
You even have John Lovitz
Yeah.
as Sticky with Mickey.
So many people in this movie.
Oh, I loved just like, oh, there's Pee Wee Herman and Danny DeVito, not only being the dad, but also the narrator. Loved it. Rhea Perlman, like we said, for a split second, I thought Matilda's brother was the kid from Jurassic Park at the very beginning that compares the raptors to turkeys and then gets the raptor claw to his throat. But it wasn't.
Does look like him, though.
It does. I'm like, ooh, deep cut. And then, nope, it was not.
It was not.
I really loved the dialogue, especially Danny DeVito. He's like, you little wiseacre. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but I'm here for it.
Where was, like, yeah, I'm pretty sure Roald Dahl's not writing this in, like, whatever Danny DeVito's city he grew up in languages.
Yeah.
Because it feels like I'm getting most of the movie a mashup of old style Dahl and Danny DeVito from the neighborhood.
Love it. Even Miss Trunchbull, use the rod, beat the child. And I'm like, whoa, you can't say that. But yet that was like very fitting for her character to say. And then like Danny DeVito had a line about a bunch of hippies. And I loved that.
There were several one-liners where I laughed, like literally laughed out loud and thought that was funny.
So as a kid, I definitely didn't pick up the one-liners. Watching this movie again, it did bring back one of the things that I was initially drawn to was just like how magical it feels, especially with her having telekinesis. Also, the character of Miss Honey, if you never had a teacher that like you just felt really connected with, that really got you through a year in school or made you want to do something with your life after school, you're missing out. But I had a teacher like that when I was in third grade, Mrs. Babcock. And Mrs. Babcock was the sweetest lady, and she made multiplication seem really cool. And I'm like, I want to go on and help people. If you have someone like that in your past, you really connect to it in this movie. Because like, oh, Mrs. Honey or Miss Honey just seemed super sweet, sincere, lovable.
You're right. Everyone does have that one teacher. Because like I had that teacher in fifth grade. She was young female, like, and her name was Miss Myers. But yeah, like Miss Honey, Mrs. Babcock, Miss Myers, like that teacher just seems to exist out there, and you just remember them for a while. Although, you know, I will say, as an early what doesn't hold up, I don't think teachers can just take kids home from school.
That did not hold the test of time, but it was okay for this movie.
As soon as it happened, I was like, nope, that can't happen.
Also, like the importance of the public library system.
Oh, yeah.
Kids reading.
Yeah.
And they really made watching TV seem like the worst thing ever. Quit reading your books, Matilda. Watch TV like a normal person. If it can't be told to you quickly on television, it doesn't need to be taught to you at all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Danny DeVito, you're making TV not seem cool while I'm watching TV.
Matilda is my oldest daughter. I mean, my oldest daughter doesn't have telekinesis.
That you know of.
That I know of, but she loves reading in a very odd way for kids, even back then, let alone now. Now it's super weird. You don't get a lot of kids that prolifically read now.
Yes.
And so I just assumed my oldest daughter would love this movie. She was not a fan. She's like, this is so weird. I'm like, yeah, but the girl reads like you do.
She does.
She's a nerd. Just like, no, I'm just kidding. No, I love that my daughter reads.
So this movie did make me think of another movie because Danny DeVito, narrator, talks about how we only use a portion of our brain, and Matilda unlocked something by using more of it. And I'm like, oh, she's Scarlett Johansson and Lucy before Scarlett Johansson and Lucy existed.
Oh, that's where you're going.
Yes.
I thought you were going Wedding Crashers.
No.
They say you only use 10% of our brains. I think we only use 10% of our hearts.
No.
It's such a great line, though.
It is. Not relating Matilda to Wedding Crashers.
All right. Anything else that holds up? We did mention the rusted root. I want to make sure we talked about a rusted root enough.
I will save the rest of it for deep themes.
Okay. So what doesn't hold up? And I feel like there's obviously something we need to talk about right off the bat.
Okay.
The adult on child violence in this movie.
Oh, that was what you're going with?
Yes. What else would I go with?
Oh, I had something way bigger and way more concerning.
The scene where Miss Trunchbull, picks up the girl by her pigtails, flings her around like, what's the Olympic event? Because she's an Olympian, a former Olympian. The thing on the chain that you throw. I don't even remember. It's not the shot put. It's not the javelin. It's the other thing.
It is.
And then she just tosses this girl. She almost throws the kid through a window, but Matilda uses her telekinesis to open the window before the kid flies through it.
But I will say the girl with the pigtails landed in flowers and picked a bunch of flowers on her way.
Thanks to Matilda, because for half a second you think she's about to land on a spiked fence. I was literally scared. I was like, what is happening in this movie? I was so disturbed. I was just very disturbed, Cody.
I don't know why.
I feel like nobody was acting in the way people would be acting. Like, these kids are going home. Like, one of the kids mentions that she told her parents, but her parents didn't believe her.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what?
It was the 90s. They didn't believe us. They didn't care.
And people aren't acting right. So there's another scene where Miss Honey and Matilda are like, they're staking out the house, and Matilda makes something happen with Trunchbull, and like Trunchbull falls down, goes boom or something, and Miss Honey's cracking up laughing, and all I could think the whole time was like, this lady murdered your father. What are we doing here?
Potentially, allegedly.
There's no potentially. She totally murdered. She believes that Miss Trunchbull murdered her father. And she's like, she fell over. Like, what?
Payback.
No,
She was also raised by Miss Trunchbull.
Yeah, but it wasn't a pleasant experience.
Yeah, so that's why she's laughing.
It was just so... All of that was just kind of... I felt like nobody in this movie acted in the way. But that's Roald Dahl, though.
It is, and I was here for it. The issue I had...
Oh, yeah, tell me what you thought I was going to say.
Was that...
The chokey?
No. It wasn't the chokey either. It was the 90s. Things existed. For me, it was Matilda using the trauma that Miss Honey went through to torment and plague Miss Trunchbull. And like in front of Miss Honey, like Miss Honey probably doesn't want to relive her dad's death, but here you are writing it on the chalkboard.
But that's what I'm saying is nobody acts like Miss Honey, especially, is not acting like a person that is in the same room with someone that murdered her father. What is happening?
Well, every time she's in the room with Miss Trunchbull, she cowers. Her body position changes. Like, she no longer is, like, warm and welcoming. It's like, I'm a shriveled up old lady. Don't come near me.
I mean, I do understand it in the way that Miss Trunchbull is obviously dangerous. She should not be around these children. Oh, my goodness. This person is a psycho.
Yes, she doesn't like kids.
Is she on roids?
Potentially.
Is she on steroids? She's a former Olympian. She's built like a brick house. She's super hairy. They show like a close-up of the back of her legs, which are super well defined. Like her calf muscles, she looks like a football player from the back. Was she on roids? Is that why she's so angry?
She just really doesn't like kids.
Oh, man. That was this whole movie. I got to say, I was entertained.
She made a kid eat a whole chocolate cake.
Let's go back to the chokey. I don't even understand why it was called the chokey. Because it was like a closet with spikes.
Well, if you position yourself in the wrong spot, it could choke you.
Okay, yeah. So the idea was they had to stand up straight and they couldn't slouch.
Yeah. And couldn't try to push against the door or you were going to get jabbed.
But it made me write down this question that I wanted to ask you because you're younger.
I am.
And so I wanted to kind of get this generational aspect of it here. Cody, did you ever experience any corporal punishment not from your parents?
Directly, no. But
what does that mean?
I had a principal who had a wall of paddles.
Ooh, what?
So if you went into the principal's office, like that was staring you in the face.
Whoa.
So mind games.
And that's in the 90s?
It was in the 90s.
Wow. You would have thought all that would have been done by then.
No.
Because you lived in a small town.
They had, like, some of the bigger schools have turnaround rooms or closets that for kids that were, like, extremely escalated. Like, you go in this closet thing that's padded, and then when you're calmed down, you can come out. So, like, although we don't have a room with spikes, there definitely is a comparable experience with, like, oh, you're isolated from your peers and you're stuck in this padded room. Now, I wasn't. I went to a smaller school that didn't have it.
I don't know why you're covering it up. Just say it was you.
It wasn't me.
That Cody was a very naughty boy.
My mom would probably agree with that, but again, the school I went to did not have it.
So I can remember, I think in second grade, I was in a school, had a teacher that would hit kids on their hands with a ruler.
Yeah.
And that was definitely, I remember that being more normal. There were kids my age that could tell stories like that. It wasn't like it was hard. It stung for about half a second. But
I forgot high school.
What, you had corporal punishment in high school?
So there was a teacher that he would throw like the chalkboard eraser at kids.
That's not corporal punishment. That's just hilarious.
He would also like flip over stuff, and he threw a desk out a window once.
He just sounds like he's got anger management issues.
Probably.
So when I was 5, this old lady in the neighborhood would babysit while my mom was at work, and we lived in a trailer park. And I was riding my bike, and I was supposed to stay in this area, but I went out of that area. And then when I came back, and the old lady, who my babysitter, she's like, "Where'd you go?" I lied, and she knew I lied.
Oh, young Dave.
Yeah. So she told me to go pick out a switch, and I was like, "I'm sorry, what now?" A switch, which you youngins listening to the podcast, if you don't know, is like you rip off a branch of a tree, like a small branch. And my kid mind was thinking, well, if it's small, we'll hurt less.
Wrong.
Yeah, it was the wrong choice because it breaks the skin when you get hit with it. It's like a whip.
It is.
I got bloodied, but I remembered that, and I did not lie to that lady again.
Well, you live and you learn.
So that's my corporal punishment story from someone other than my parents. But I got.
I was going to say grandparents.
No,
That happened.
well, I mean, not family.
Yeah.
I got spanked with the belt a few times,
Yes.
but that was by my parents. So, yeah. Anything else that doesn't hold up?
So something I forgot to mention that does hold up is like the being a crooked car salesman.
Yeah.
That was like,
Not just crooked, really crooked.
he's like, oh, you pour wood shavings and run smooth for a couple miles.
How about the cops or the FBI agents that are like aware of this and they're staking them out? There's all these kids just being neglected and they don't seem to care.
They don't.
Like, what?
Matilda walks by them so frequently and they're not thinking like, oh, what's up with this girl?
Yeah. You don't feel like her brother is played as another foil. Like, but actually he's probably like that because the parents were terrible.
Oh no, like
He's a victim too.
He's a product of the environment he's in and explains why he does the things that he does and treats Matilda the way he does, but not good parenting, but that's what they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Is not good parents.
Was that all you had? Because I only have one other thing.
Okay, I'm ready for this one other thing.
And I've already alluded to it. Matilda's powers, that's a little scary. She grows up to be Carrie. Stephen King's Carrie. Like, the trauma has already happened for her. You can't be this powerful and expect her to use these powers wisely when she's already experienced all this trauma.
So when we get to deeper themes, I will rebuttal.
Okay. All right, good. Let's do which character would you be in this movie first? This should be interesting. Which character would you be? This is hard. This is a hard one.
I feel like I would be the friend at the Lavender.
I can see you hanging from the bar.
Yeah. I would be warning the new kid and also trying to hide.
I thought long and hard about this. I'm Miss Honey.
I was waiting for you to say either Miss Honey or Brucey. It was one of those two.
I don't know what you're talking about. What's because he likes to eat the cake? I don't even like cake or chocolate.
What?
That truly would have been a punishment for me.
That chocolate cake looks so divine.
Did it?
Yes.
I kept seeing the lady Trunchbull eating it, like licking her lips and wiping it off her face. And
Well,
like
watching her eat it was gross, and watching the lady that made it come out and wipe her nose with her hand was icky, but
I should have mentioned this more, but Pam Ferris as Miss Trunchbull, God bless her. Man, did she do a good job?
she did.
She was amazing. She made a whole generation of kids just despise her. And she doesn't even look anything like what she appeared on screen. That was the crazy part. So wild stuff. But yeah. So let's go to deeper themes. Cody, hit me with your deeper themes.
So the end of the movie and my rebuttal point would be that these two characters, Miss Honey and Matilda, they both were longing for love and to be loved. And some people, not all, it takes a very unique set of circumstances and it can't always be replicated, but some people that go through adverse experiences or trauma, they come out of it knowing what not to do.
Yeah.
I have a close friend. His dad was an alcoholic. He hasn't touched alcohol in his life. He's 36 years old, hasn't touched a single drink. He didn't want to even test it because he knows that there is a family history of addiction, and he knows that he doesn't want that to be the story for his kid, for his family.
Yeah.
And there's people that weren't loved by their parents who overly love.
Yeah.
Because they don't want their kids to go through that. And so there is a chance that Matilda grows up not to be like Carrie, because there is a Miss Honey in her life. That there is someone that loves and cares for her and is deeply compassionate and empathetic. And Miss Honey sharing the story of her childhood, but doing it in a almost fairy tale fashion at first, really holds up well and causes you to have empathy. And like at first you're like, oh, this sounds like the saddest story, and then oh, it's about this nicest lady that's out there. And at the end, yes, you would want Matilda's parents to actually become good parents, but if they couldn't, you would want her to end up with Miss Honey, to share that love and to fill the void of not being loved or acknowledged as a kid.
Yeah. So, yeah, you got this whole story about this kid with terrible parents. She's being
terrible from birth.
abused through neglect,
Yes.
essentially. Like, they never hit her.
Nope.
There's no physical abuse, but definitely abuse through neglect. And she's just different. She reads, she's academic, she seems cultured when the rest of the family isn't. And
She knows big multiplication.
yeah, and so she does gravitate towards Miss Honey. And I thought you were going to go there. It sounded like where you were going at first, but then you went a different direction. There is the case where two people who've gone through something similar.
Yes.
It's the whole thing Alcoholics Anonymous and things like that are built on. The idea that, hey, we're going to be stronger together because we know what each of us are going through.
Yes.
And that's going to help us. That's not 100% effective, obviously, but it helps in some cases. So, yeah, I could see it.
Oh, yeah. And although Miss Honey's story is definitely different than Matilda's, and Matilda's is very different than Miss Honey, there is this common ground that their childhood wasn't the best and that they still are looking to be the best people they can be.
Yeah. Yeah. For deeper themes, early on in the movie, there is a line by the narrator specifically.
Danny DeVito.
Yeah. Where the narrator's talking about Matilda's love for books.
Yes.
And he says this: these books gave Matilda a comforting message. You are not alone. And that really got me, because as people who listen to this pod know, I think I've talked about it before, I felt very lonely as a kid. I was an only child, had a lot of issues with my step family and stuff like that. And I just felt like I was alone a lot. And I loved comic books. I took my comic books with me everywhere I went. I know that sounds nerdy, but I just did. And those books, those stories were my companion. And so just like the narrator is staying there for Matilda, is like those stories were her companion. And I just had my heart just blew up 5 sizes when the narrator said that, because I understood that. I get that.
So while I was watching this last night, and the narrator got to that line, I'm like, if Dave doesn't love this movie, I'm going to rampage. Because I literally that line came out and I'm like, this is Dave.
I love her character. I love that about her. I can't say I love the movie.
How dare you?
All right, Cody, who's the winner of the movie?
Oh, there's so many to choose from. I think I have to go Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go for a weird reason.
Okay.
Not only is he the narrator, not only is he Mr. Wormwood, He's also the director. But because of this movie happening and because of the circumstances within Mara's life, you get this incredible story about him. Her mom is going through cancer as she is starring in this movie.
Yes.
And Danny and Rhea have Mara over when mom's getting cancer treatments to kind of help provide childcare. He scrambles and gets a nearly complete version of the movie to show the mom before she dies of cancer. And you just see like how actually compassionate and opposite of Wormwood he is. Yeah. And he does occasionally, like, I think it's like once a month or so that he reaches out and just checks in on Mara still.
Yeah. They basically became caregivers for Mara.
Yes.
I read this story. I read an interview by Mara Wilson who talked about this. And you just think, man, Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman are the real deal.
And like, I love Batman. I love the Penguin is probably my favorite villain consistently. He fluctuates between 1 and 3, but he never falls out of the top 3. And Danny DeVito playing the Penguin is a big deal for me, but this movie is my ultimate Danny DeVito movie or TV show. It's my go-to Danny DeVito.
Yeah. I'll say this for this movie. I don't dislike it. I'll say I don't get it. It doesn't hit me in this place that it must hit millennials. And so I'm left kind of like, oh, I watched something. I'm just not sure what to make of it. But I will say this. Danny DeVito would be my winner too. He'd be the winner of this movie because even though this movie doesn't do a lot, he doesn't direct many movies, but seeing now that this is a cult classic, a cult favorite, he's actually touring with the musical thing, being the narrator still. He gets recognized as kind of the guy who made this movie happen. I just think that's awesome because Danny DeVito, for my generation, people remember him from like Taxi. People remember him from Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and kind of just playing these weird characters like the Penguin in the second Batman, Tim Burton Batman movie. And then here he gets known through an entirely new generation through, now through It's Always Sunny.
Yes.
So people know him from that, but.
And Jersey Mike's.
Millennials got this Danny DeVito, which I think is really cool. And honorable mention, you get Rhea Perlman, who my generation simply knew as Carla from Cheers.
Yes.
And she gets kind of typecast. And in this, she gets to play kind of a different role where she's still quite unlikable, like Carla, but a different way.
A very different way.
And it struck me several times watching this movie. I'm like, oh, she really can act. She's good at this. She's more than Carla from Cheers. And so, yeah, Danny DeVito with an honorable mention to Rhea Perlman. I was very impressed with them in this movie. Who's the loser of the movie?
Danny DeVito. With honorable mention to the actress that played Mrs. Trunchbull.
Oh, yeah.
But Danny DeVito comes off as this slimy, no good, awful dad who, like, even during the adoption, like, giveaway process, like, Rhea Perlman at least has a moment that you're seeing that she's like, I always wanted a daughter. I just never got you. And, like, you feel like she's trying to be compassionate in that moment.
Yeah.
And Danny DeVito's like, well, we got to hurry. So sign the papers.
My loser of the movie is Pam Ferris, who played Miss Trunchbull.
Yes.
Because one, she has to put a version of herself on screen forever and ever that is super. I mean, like, they uglied her up. She's a good looking older lady in the picture I'm looking at here. She's looks like a lovely human being. And poor Miss Trunchbull is just, I mean, everything about her just makes you cringe. To know that this was her big role.
Oh, yeah.
Someone this is an iconic role for a cult classic favorite for an entire generation. And she's like cringeworthy villain in the whole show. So that's why I'm thinking nobody
She is a mustache twirling villain
Yes!
in this.
Nobody will remember Pam Ferris for anything but this role. And she got hurt a lot playing this role. So when she's attacked by the erasers, she got so much chalk dust in her eye that she required multiple hospital visits.
Aw.
Yeah. And
She got food fighted.
to film the scene where she's flinging around Amanda Thripp by her pigtails, they had like used this harness that attached to the actress and to her fingers. And it was very poorly thought out because as she was doing it, apparently the force caused by the shot of them doing that, like almost ripped her finger off. She had to get stitches.
Oh.
Yeah.
So do you know what else she has been?
What else has she been in?
She has been in the Harry Potter series as Marge Dursley.
That's why she looked familiar.
Yep.
No way. She plays like the same character.
Just not an Olympic athlete.
Oh, man.
And
Poor-
she likes one kid, at least, in the Harry Potter series.
That's crazy how similar that is.
But then she's also in, like, the nativity, like, cartoon Christmas movies. And so she must be nice in other things.
Good for her. Good for her. Pam Ferris. Good for you. All right. How many telekinetic little girls out of 10? How many chocolates in the chocolate box out of 10 are you giving this movie, Cody?
9.
It's a 9. It's a solid 9 for Cody.
Oh,
this
love
is,
this
is his
movie.
Goonies.
So this is up there in my childhood rotation of movies with, like, Jurassic Park.
Okay. Listen, I told you. I knew when I watched it. I'm like, I'm of the opinion that I've watched something quality. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. So I'm going to give it a 6.
Ouch. Like, I think you gave Thor Love and Thunder at least a 6.5.
I'm going to give it a 6.5. All right. Because I just don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to make of this movie. Honestly, it's hard for me to put a rating on it. Because it's not like what I watched. I'm not watching it saying this was not quality good. No. I can tell that what they put on film, what they worked to do, had quality to it. It just hits me in this place where I'm like, this is so weird.
So this comes, like, the people that grew up with this movie also grew up with the tail end of Pee Wee Herman.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a bunch of weird cartoons. Beetlejuice is a big mainstay for people my age.
See, I'm not a big fan
And,
of Beetlejuice.
Tim Burton's a big thing for people my age.
Oh, hold on. But I didn't even talk about this. The whole time I'm watching this movie, I'm like, how is this not a Tim Burton movie? Feels like this should have been a Tim Burton movie.
It would have been a lot darker.
Yeah, but it would have made more sense to me at that point. I think that's why I don't get it.
It's a bright, sunny, dark story.
Yeah, I think that was what made it weird. Because if it's Tim Burtonized, I'm like, oh, I get it.
This is gothic and depressing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. What did you guys think of Matilda? I'm especially interested to hear if there are any millennials that don't like it.
I do know of a few.
Or any Gen Xers, like people my age or older, that do like it.
If you like Danny DeVito, you'll love this.
Yeah. Let us know on the social media posts for this episode. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, share our posts, be a part of the community, join the Facebook community page. We're all about making the community bigger because we just love people. On that note, we'll be at Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City.
The following week
a
after
week from this drops.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd there at Bartle Hall in Kansas City. So come see us.
Pop culture pastor. Pop culture pastor. Pop culture pastor.